I'm Stacey Tucker, and this is the story behind my stories.
You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
JT Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Thor,
Corey, Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mom,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Sherwin Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is
Stacey Tucker.
Find all of the archives of the show at hankgarner.com. If you find some episodes that you like in the archives, would you do me a favor and share those with your friends, family, and loved ones? I would really appreciate that. I hope you enjoy all of the great shows that we bring you, and the reason we're able to bring you such great content is because of our sponsors, and I would like to thank some of those sponsors. If you would like to sponsor the show and highlight your product or service to our audience, go to hankgarner.com, and there's a link in the menu there at the top that says advertise, and you can highlight your product or service to our audience. Nick Breaker's book Essence, Book 1 Septima, one of the best science fiction writers I know. Nick Breaker weaves some of the best science fiction adventure stories you'll ever read. Essence, Book 1 Septima is a must-read. Go pick it up today. There's a link to it in the show notes. Third Scribe is the place for authors and readers to meet. Go to thirdscribe.com. You can set up an account for free, and you can link up with some of your favorite authors and find out what's going on with them. Authors, you need to have a place where you can highlight your books to your audience. Thirdscribe.com is built especially around books, linking people that love books with people that write books. Go visit them today. Thirdscribe.com. Tell Robin the folks that I sent you. Tales from the Canyons of the Damned. Episode 20 just dropped today. It is amazing, with stories by Jess West, Rhett Bruno, Eamon Ambrose, Bob Williams. Tales is my favorite monthly publication. Go pick it up today and get that old pulp goodness feeling. Tales from the Canyons of the Damned, episode number 20, out right now. Also, don't forget, we're highlighting Tales of Dystopia this week, and we've got a special interview show with some of the authors from it. But Chronicle World's Tales of Dystopia, 13 stories of animals and humans interacting at the end of the world. This project also benefits Pets for Vets, one of the most outstanding charities out there, linking up rescue animals with veterans that need some companionship. So go pick up a copy of Chronicle World's Tales of Dystopia. It's only 99 cents while it launches. At the end of the show, don't forget we have an audio book clip from Richard Cleaves, the Jason Crane series. Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today I'm really excited to have Stacey Tucker on the show with me. Stacey has a new book called Ocean Fires, Book 1 in the Equal Night Trilogy, and we're going to talk all about that in just a few minutes. Welcome to the show, Stacey.
Thanks, Hank. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. We begin each show with the same question, and that question is, what is your first memory of wanting to be a writer or a storyteller?
I'm one of those late bloomers. I will give away. I am in my mid-40s, and this was probably a dozen years ago. I was just going through a crazy time in my life, and writing became a way for processing all that I was going on. The journaling became blogging, kind of journaling to the world kind of thing, and I discovered the power of writing, discovering the secrets within through the tool of writing. And it was just so miraculous for me, and I've been doing it ever since. It's just such a powerful tool.
You're not the first one that has been on the show that turned to writing as a catharsis to deal with something. But had it never occurred to you before that you thought you might have a book in you or a story to tell?
No. I can be clear on that. No, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, dabbled in a lot of different things, and I'm only child, so I'm used to being alone. So it wasn't it wasn't a huge jump for me. In my early 30s, I still hadn't found what I wanted to do career-wise, that I loved. So this was it wasn't a shock that this has evolved, but it definitely wasn't planned.
Gotcha. As a kid, were you a big reader?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. As an only child, I would think so. A lot of only children that I know of turn to books, and that they become companions in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and imaginative play as well. You're alone a lot, and you make up a lot of imaginary friends and situations and stories where I'm wasn't writing them down, but I was definitely making them up. And so yes, I did have that thread throughout my life, and it's flourished as of late, and it's really been to be able to connect to that inspiration and imagination that we all have is so fun. It's mad. I think it's magical.
I do too. I love to talk about writing in. I love to talk about the mechanics of writing and the the craft of it. I think that's very, very important, and we all have to work on that. But sometimes there's this thing that you can't explain, and stories come from there, whether it's our subconscious or it's magic. I don't know, but I love it, and I love hearing when people say that thing visits them.
Oh, absolutely. And I know I can't do it alone. And there's definitely a part of my spirit or higher self or angels or who knows. But I'm happy to be the vessel, and that will also happen too as I'm writing. You get these inspirations and you think, well, where'd that come from, right? It didn't come from me,
right?
But so there definitely is a spirituality for me in writing as well, a connection to a different part of myself.
Right. I actually got an email from a reader one time that read one of my books, and he quoted a line from it. And I said, "Oh, wow, that's good. I wonder who I quoted that from." And I went back and I was like, "Oh, I wrote that." And I was like, "I'm not that smart." That's, it's fascinating when that happens.
Right.
But what kind of books did you love when you were growing up?
I was of the Judy Blume era.
Oh, yeah.
I loved the strong, sassy girls, and which there weren't too many back then in reading, but and the Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I remember that one.
Oh, yeah. I remember Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing and Super Fudge. Those were huge for me. Judy Blume was a master.
Of course.
Yeah. So you said a few years ago you were going through some stuff and you decided to start journaling. Where did you get the idea to start putting those thoughts down?
Let's see. Well, it evolved into my first book, which was called Eat, Drink, and Remarry, which was sort of a self-help / memoir on getting married for the second time before 30. I was young, I had an early marriage and divorce, and then I was getting married for the second time around the age of 30 to a man with 3 small children, and my mom was sick with cancer at the time, and I tried to plan the wedding as my first, the way I did my first, and so many things were going wrong. I couldn't believe the obstacles that I was encountering, just mishaps and just craziness, and lost deposits multiple times, and ordering 1,000 flowers and having them show up because I wanted to do the flowers myself, and having them show up on my doorstep, and I had buckets all around my kitchen and of thousands of flowers that I thought I could do myself, and just things that I was doing incorrectly that I thought, God, I should be writing this down because this is just comical. And that's really where it started, was just starting to write down the funny mishaps that were going on, planning that wedding. And then it sprinkled in some deeper things about processing divorce and other things that I was going through. So it was a cathartic process for me, but I also was hoping maybe I could help someone else who could be going through the same thing.
It takes a special eye or ear to pick out the lighthearted moments in the midst of what feels like tragedy and mishap. And then communicating those, it's really important when you're putting across something that is very important and very weighty, to sprinkle that with humor. Is that part of your nature? Are you do you kind of naturally have a dark sense of humor and kind of find the funny in the tragedy, or was this something new for you?
Yeah, no, I sometimes I'll have more of a biting humor, which can get a little, it does definitely get sprinkled in, and I think you have to, just be somewhat objective in those moments, especially, when you can be a screaming bride trying to and everything's falling apart, just to find those moments when you're not crying and say, okay, I'm maybe this can be funny at some point. Maybe not now. I'll look back and I'll read it and I will laugh. Maybe not right now. But so I had tried to do that, and like I had said, I'd never been a writer, so I was kind of winging it, and I hope my writing has improved a bit since then, because it wasn't, the writing itself, I wouldn't say was all that great, but my heart was there.
Yeah, and we improve. It's that's like what I was talking about earlier. The craft. We constantly work on the craft.
Right.
But if you don't have the storytelling gene,
Right.
you can work on craft all you want to, and nobody will still want to read it, because all the mechanics can be right, but it's just not a good story. So what did you learn when you started writing down those thoughts and those moments and those situations? As a first-time writer, what did you learn maybe about yourself or about writing that you never considered before actually starting to do it?
I had to give myself permission to be imperfect and to actually be bad, because I really wanted, and everyone does, right? You want your writing to just be so fabulous right out of the gate, and your words to flow, and you're just so eloquent and fabulous. But it doesn't. I've had to learn that that's not the case. Give myself permission to just get my thoughts on paper and then mold them. And it is a bit of a painful process for me. I want it to be so good right away, and I equate it to the lump of coal turning into a diamond. I have to keep molding it, or it will never get to where I want it to be. So that was a big lesson for me, and especially that I had to learn early on.
Yeah. How long did it take you to put together that first book?
Well, I started writing it in 2000. I was getting remarried in 2004, and it didn't get published until 2011. So that's a really long time. But I had a baby in between then, and I had shelved it for quite a while. And it just, I thought, I remember I was starting to write a book once, and then I pulled it out, and it just became a goal to finish. But so it was a long process for me, and that specific one, the goal for me then was really just to get it done and out into the world. I didn't really have any other grander plan for it. But so that was a really long time. But I'd have to say that the actual time I worked on it was probably 2 years.
Gotcha. And that book is out there. What's the name of it again?
Eat, Drink, and Remarry.
Eat, Drink, and Remarry. Excellent.
Yeah.
So what had you shift gears to writing, folk tales and modern mythology?
It's that actually too. It was a long process for me. I started researching. I'll say when my mom died in 2004, it put me on a path of, what's this life about? Why are we all here? Kind of spirituality that I'd never even thought of before. And, I started reading self-help books and spirituality and all that good stuff, and started researching ancient history and came across goddess culture and the ways of ancient Egypt and where things started to change, in the Greco-Roman society, and when that started taking over, and then the shift for women, the shift for societies, where things started, and the shifts of power and all of that. And I found it so incredibly interesting and irritating. I thought, oh my gosh, this was our history way back when, it really got, especially women's history, just got shattered by various powers that were at the time. And I thought, okay, let me keep digging. And then probably about 3 years, I was researching just all different sorts of topics. And I thought, what can I do with this information? Because I was, a woman and hadn't really known about much of women's history. And I was a woman. So I thought, gee, I'd like to share this in some entertaining format. Because I'm a big nonfiction reader, but thought, I'm going to try my hand at telling a story with it, and maybe it will be a little easier received. And that's really why I started with this trilogy. And it's the three great mothers: fire, air, and water. And I thought, just how fun, there's just so many things that you could do with that, and mythology and just imagination and magic and overlapping it with science. And it's really just been so fun. So fun.
I'm picturing you in your writing office with articles and things pinned to the wall everywhere, and figure, okay, now I'm going to connect this to this, and then where do you begin when you've? I understand that you're doing research for yourself and just trying to uncover your own feelings about things and kind of your connection to this greater human history. I like to do that as well, and I collect odd facts and kind of I have a folder where I say, well, I'm going to use this one day to do something. But at what point do all of those kind of disparate things start coming together for you?
Yeah, because there are so many different pieces, right? And every time I would look at one thing, it would just unravel so many other things, and you really, one leads to five. And there was one point where, and part of the small backstory of the Equal Night trilogy is the Lost Book of Sophia surfaces after thousands of years, and I actually had one reader ask me if that book truly exists, and I felt so honored. Ooh, this is great. I'm actually people actually like internalizing some of the things I'm saying, and that was really great. But just like so for me, the concept of Sophia I had never heard of, and who is the representation of the feminine aspect of God, which I had never been taught growing up. And I thought, I love that idea. And so I've tied and anchored a lot of other parts of the stories and the threads to that one anchor of the divine feminine, the feminine aspect of spirituality and God, and how it was lost over the course of thousands of years, and it's now coming back to the planet and to society, and things are changing for women rapidly every day in our country and our world, and trying to tie that into the deepening of our relationship to our soul. It's just as humans and our evolution as why are we here on the planet? So all heavy stuff, Hank.
Right. Well, Sophia is usually referred to as wisdom, or kind of the name of Sister Wisdom in a lot of writings. Does that aspect of the spirit of Sophia, if you will, come through in this book?
It does. And Sophia is the goddess of wisdom in the Greek mythology. And so many are familiar with the name as that. But then also a broader sense representing just the wisdom, more the wisdom of God. So that's kind of even more broad. But yes, so it's definitely wisdom. That's a definite theme. And wisdom of the heart, I should say. It's more, knowledge you can be taught, and it's brain. But this is wisdom of the heart, which is, your intuitive gut truth, what you know is true that can't be taught or even spoken. You just know it has no words. And that is the Sophia is what I'm saying in these books.
Yeah. And what always intrigues me, Stacey, is that, and this goes right along with what you're saying, that there's kind of this innate, ingrained thing in us as humans that we all want to go back and connect to. And when you start looking at ancient traditions from all over the world, there's a lot of similarities there, and it's almost like we have gone out of our way to separate the things we believe about each other and get as far away from that. And when you start digging back, there are a lot of similarities in our traditions, in our myths, and all of this stuff. Did you find that as well as you were looking back at ancient traditions that even though they were from different parts of the world, there are great similarities?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Eastern philosophy, especially, and the Kabbalah, the mystical texts from thousands of years ago, or the Christian mysticism, the agnostics. I mean, a lot of this is all pre-church teachings were about I'll use the word magic, but the magic of the human soul and what we have and the powers that we have to create the world that we want. And that definitely has been, we've drifted far from that. But I think now, like you're saying earlier, this time in our lives and history, we're starving for that truth, that connection to our souls and our wholeness that we all seek outside ourselves, and when it's really within ourselves. So to cultivate that relationship, which I have worked very hard to do, and it's what I cling to that, and I try and portray the main character trying to go through that journey as well to get back to the power within. That we tend to ignore most days.
What age group are you targeting with this book?
These are for women, college and up.
Okay.
I've committed these 3 books, and they are adult women's fiction. But after this, I have my sights set on grade or children's books. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to teach young readers about about the divinity within their soul, and like I look to the Percy Jacksons, right, and all of those great books on mythology. But I also feel like there's this hole which could be filled with other cultures of mythology, the Hindu goddesses, or the Kuan Yin, or other. There are so many other wonderful avenues to explore for mythology. It's so vast.
Oh yeah, it's literally wide open. There's so many stories to be told.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we talked earlier about kind of this concept of taking these deep truths and wrapping them in story. And a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Exactly,
if you will. How do you go about creating the story that these deep truths are wrapped in? So where did Ocean's Fire come from?
That's a very good question, and I had to be careful with not being too preachy. I really wanted to get some lessons in there, but I also wanted to be mindful that this is entertainment. So I made sure that there was a love story, and there is romance, which is always a plus. And I also wanted to explore the mother-daughter relationship a lot. as I had mentioned earlier, my mom had passed when I was around 30, and a lot of my life was shaped at that time and still is from that experience and not having her now. So I've also wanted to explore that thread, because I think the mother-daughter relationship is so complex for so many different reasons, and it is also something that we, as far as communication and relationships with those that we love the most, can be very hard, if not impossible, especially for mothers and daughters. We don't tend to communicate very well. We've never really been taught. So that was another one for me. I wanted to try and where female readers could relate with their own relationships with their mothers or daughters. So there are a lot of female characters in the book that of grandmothers, mothers, daughters, and it's it can be quite challenging, but because they all have very strong opinions.
So tell me a little bit about the setup. So the ancient book of Sophia is unearthed, and what does that cause?
Well, so what does that cause?
What's kind of the incident that kind of kicks off the book? Like what kind of adventure can we expect from these characters?
Right. Well, the main character, Skylar, I mean, she's always had this book in her mother's house. And it wasn't until one event happens that she comes to learn exactly, the magic starts to come out of the book, the teachings, the truths start coming out of this book that she always knew was there, but never in that capacity. It changes a bit. And so she also meets some characters, some women that she comes to know her very well, but she has never met before. And they've all been waiting for this time in history where this book has come back into our world, for their plan to get set in motion. So she's learning, the main character Skylar is learning that her life was nothing that she thought it was, or her history was nothing that she thought it was, and so she has to process that, all while reconnecting with her childhood sweetheart, and so she has a leap of faith that these women are here to help her, and also go on her own journey of once you learn the truth, what will you do with it? So this new information has been placed in your lap. Okay, now what? Now what are you going to do with it? And it becomes her journey of, do I deny and try and live my normal life, or do I accept this new quest and go on and try and help the divine feminine energies return to the planet?
So it's very much a hero's quest kind of story.
Yes.
I love it. You said this is the first book in a trilogy. Beginning writing fiction and kind of planting your flag in the ground with a trilogy is kind of ambitious. Did you see this as a trilogy from the beginning? Did you have an overarching plan for these characters and for the story? Yes,
and I as I said a bit earlier, there was so much information that I was just volumes of my own notes from all of the things that I was learning. I knew it wouldn't fit all in one book, and I thought, it's actually in the Kabbalah, the Jewish book of mysticism, that the three mother letters for fire, water, and air. And I thought, oh, that's great. I'm going to use that. And then, that the world started from the three mothers, right? The three mother, fire, water, and air. And I thought, that's just great. And so there's my 3 books, fire, water, and air. And I'll run with that, and then put all that information into those 3 and see how it goes. And so my second book is I've got about 80,000 words, which is great. And so I'm close to finishing that one. And then I'll have the third, which I don't have one word for. So I'll go back to that faith that
Right.
that it will. I've learned too as a writer, if I show up, the writing shows up, and it definitely does take the faith in that, and it's worked for me so far. So I'm sticking with it.
Do you know how it ends?
I do. I know that. Yes, I do know how it ends, but I don't know the last word.
Right. I think I'm kind of like that. When I start something, usually I'll have a great opening scene. I'll have a good firm foundation for how it opens, and a lot of times I'll have that ending scene. And I may not have the words, but I have the feeling, the emotion, sometimes a twist, and I'll kind of plant a flag there, and that's what I'm writing toward. Now I just need to get them from this beginning to that ending, and then
Right.
sometimes things go haywire in between, and places I never would have imagined, but I kind of have that feeling for what I want the reader to experience in the end.
Absolutely, yeah, and I love the headlight metaphor of
Yeah.
you can only see a few feet in front of you, but you'll get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Ocean's Fire. What is the title? What kind of hint are we getting from the title?
Well, I wanted fire, air, and water to all be in the title, and ocean is actually a character in the book.
Excellent.
That's the only hint I'll give you.
That's yeah. Okay, all right. We're gonna have to dig into it. Stacey, you also have written some nonfiction. I saw an article that you had written about Gen X women. Why are those people so important to you?
Well, I am one, so that's important.
I think we Gen Xers get left out of a lot of things.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why I was really fired up about where are we? We're getting wedged off here between millennials and boomers, and and what was funny, and I think everyone in that article was, More Magazine, which was targeting women around the age of 40, closed their actual doors for their print magazine and went online, and then changed their whole structure to women under 30. And I thought, shit,
What the heck? Yeah.
where am I? And so I was upset about that. So I thought, okay, no one is speaking to my demographic anymore, and why is that? And we have a lot of life left, and we really deserve to be heard, and that was the point of my article.
Being a
And to also have some tools as far as like, okay, what can we do to make these next years be so the best ever? Because that's what you want.
Yeah, and the article is being a warrior in the forgotten Generation X, and
Yes.
it's great.
Thank you.
It's powerful stuff. You talk about getting in touch with your aggression.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that?
As women, we're taught to play nice and don't offend and please everyone, and that was sort of my permission slip to women to say, hey, if you're upset about something, speak up instead of just zipping it, or if something's bothering you, say so. And just yesterday, I was in the grocery and they had some music on, and the profanities that were coming out of this speaker, I thought, oh my God. And so the old me never would have said anything and just been, gotten my pound of chopped meat and left. But I was, I said, I spoke up and said, hey, this isn't, I'm shopping here, I'm a customer, change the channel. and they were appreciative of it. But I think women have to find their pair to a little more than we've been taught, instead of just to kind of go with the flow. It's okay to speak up and say what you need and speak your mind. So that was the point of that.
And by creating strong characters like Skylar in Ocean's Fire, hopefully we're getting that message out that that it's okay to be a strong woman. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to, to stand your ground, and that adventures are for everybody.
Absolutely. They are. That's what life's about, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the new book is called Ocean's Fire, Book 1 of the Equal Night Trilogy. Stacey, where can people find you online if they want to dig into all of your writing and follow along as this trilogy unfolds?
Well, my book is wherever books are sold. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and my website, Stacey with an E, Staceyl Tucker.com, has a lot of my articles that have been published lately, and some blog posts and things like that. Some more nonfiction type of story.
Excellent. Stacey, we wish you tremendous success with the Equal Night Trilogy, and we look forward to see what's coming up next.
Thanks so much, Hank. This has been so great.
Thanks for listening to the Author Stories podcast. For more great author interviews like this one, go to hankgarner.com and dig through the archives. There's something there I know you'll love. Now stay tuned for a special audio clip from Richard Gleaves' The Jason Crane series.
Summer waned. The sun still kissed the waters of the Hudson, but less passionately, like a bride having second thoughts. The days grew a minute shorter, the shadows a millimeter longer, and fear descended upon Sleepy Hollow just as imperceptibly. Even in the heat of July, when the town still wore shorts and sandals, when it still carried ice chests and pressed beers to its forehead, when its children played in sand piles and its old men sat talking baseball. Bad things began to happen. Everywhere, it seemed. On the afternoon of July 10th, 2 Terrytown women went shopping at the Barnes stationery store. Both reached for the last package of lace wedding invitations at the same time. Their confrontation ended with bloody fists and an ambulance ride. On July 14th, Larry Putnam choked on a California spring roll at Andy Ng's Japanese sushi restaurant on Beekman Avenue. The following Saturday, Judy Jessup found Gypsy, her daughter's black cat, dead, strung up on the fence behind their house, just dangling there, eyes open and fangs bared. Come sunset, fireflies hung thick above the lawns of the hollow. Red eyes peered through the shutters of abandoned houses. A mist rose from the parched earth and hung low, especially behind the old Dutch church, among the graves of the ancient burying ground. The old Croton Aqueduct Trail, usually a summer playground, grew eerily empty. Hardly anyone walked there, especially at night, when gnarled branches held hands and rustled to each other around cauldron clearings of moonlight. Those who did so reported strange attacks, gossamer apparitions, and the distant sound of horses' hooves. 11 years prior, after the GM plant had closed, when the village of North Terrytown had been rechristened Sleepy Hollow, it had seemed natural to adopt the horseman as town mascot. He appeared on the badges of the police officers, on the sides of the fire trucks, on the menus of restaurants, on the stationery of the mayor. He arose from his grave as a tchotchke in the gift shops. He haunted the helmets of the football team, the windows of the bike shop, the rings presented to outgoing seniors. The black-cloaked figure of the headless horseman manifested everywhere, ubiquitous as Mickey Mouse in the Magic Kingdom, and almost as subliminal. People had grown used to the horseman, fond of him even. Eventually they had ceased to notice him. They noticed him now. And they noticed him everywhere. On hats and collar pins and park signs, on cars and buses, on statues, on plaques, on the side of the chevron. The horseman galloped down Beekman Avenue, shop window by shop window. He rode in daylight and in darkness and in the nightmares of their children. Their fondness for the figure became fear, dread, and doubt. Why had they named their town after a ghost story? To name a thing is to give it power, to give it substance and flesh. What had they done? Each sunset, as the village of Sleepy Hollow sank deeper into shadow, more and more former North Terrytowners wondered if embracing the legend hadn't been a mistake. But they had to press forward. The mill wheel turns. Summer ends. Time comes for school to start. The ball glove goes into the closet. Grandfather asks for a jacket. Beer becomes coffee or pumpkin spice. A leaf turns, falls, and twists. The season comes. There's money to be made. Time to unpack the fright masks, to fetch the scarecrow from his firehouse closet. Time to bundle the cornstalks and light the pumpkins. Time for the headless horseman to menace the tourists again.